is the ability, a military example here, is the ability to coordinate troops.
You're muted again.
How is it possible?
Michel, I'm not sure why that is the case. I asked both me and Elton. We are not muting, so I'm unsure how that could be. Perhaps trying to exit and re-enter would be a better way, or I'm uncertain. I'm also
Sorry to interrupt, guys. I see all participants have the ability to mute you at any time. There's a permission issue with the setup of this room.
I must contact Barrett currently because I must he's the organizer to this event. And
no, but it's not possible. He's lecturing at this point in time, I think so.
Okay.
But so please don't use the mute all button as participant, but only your own. Okay. So again, a capability is the ability to do something with an intended effect. You see an example here. I can give you another example that's of, let's say, the ability to defend myself. I could either use a stick, a gun, or a stone, or a rocket. And so there's a difference between a capability and a capacity. But we talk in this game on the level of capability. And I'll explain a bit further. So it's a series. And we can play it with multiple teams. In this case, you can play it with hundreds of people actually. And that's what we gonna do in this game, in this course. In general, the use of these games is to create strategic conversations on needs and ambitions, on both on current and also on new capabilities. So, for example, we also use it to work together with governments on a certain set of capabilities that they might have at this point in time, but also use the game then to identify what else, what extra would you need as a capability. Conditions for having certain capabilities or prioritize capabilities, but you can also use it to identify lessons learned and knowledge transfer. And that's also where we use this game for today. Another part, and you'll recognize it in the game when we go to that one, is that we use what I could call a analytical framework. And the analytical framework has two elements. The columns, so the verticals, are strategic functions. And here, for example, just a type of example is 3 functions: prepare, respond, aftercare. So these are the 3 functions of a system. And again, people, please don't use the mute all button. We'll coordinate it for tomorrow's lectures that we do it differently, because this should not be the case. But so you see in the columns, the reason why a organization should exist, like prepare, respond, and aftercare, but it could also be others. And the other ones, that's more in the rows. An example here is, again, okay, in the rows it is diplomatic, informational, military, and economic. But if you look at this as a Excel sheet, then you could say, okay, let's, in the combination, and that's what you see here with the arrows, in the combination of a strategic function and a functional area, as we call it, what is necessary as a capability to make this strategic function happen. So this is the concept behind this. Later in the game, I'll explain a bit further. What we also will do at some point, and we'll do that during the gameplay and intermediates, because we will have 2 or 3 event moments where we take you by the hand for the next steps in the game, is that we're going to ask you, okay, so now you have played all kind of capabilities. This is just an example set of something else. What capabilities are causal to others? So, for example, let me give you a cyber. You could think about the ability to have an offensive cyber capability, to do something offensive. But in order to be able to do that, you probably need defensive capabilities as a start. Because if you do not have that capability, you'll be wiped out immediately. So that means that there are some preconditions, so other kind of capabilities necessary before you can start, for example, having a offensive capability. And what we do here, and this will be played later on in the game, is that we say we ask everybody to score which of the cards you think are a precondition for other cards. So then you get a causality analysis. So in order to do this or that, you need this and that. So this is a bit of how the mechanism works. Would show if you played tabletop, but then you can play it with 8, but we can play it with a couple of hundreds. What we're going to do, actually, which is quite exciting. Okay, I think for this, I think I have shown enough. Yeah, I would suggest that we go over to the game version, Emma. So maybe you can start showing.
Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes. Okay. Well, here maybe should I explain Emma a bit?
Yes,
so if
exactly.
if you're logged in the game, and the only way doing that is you have I think you already have a link, or you get a link, I'm not sure, that you can only use your email address that you signed in with the course, because your email address is automatically also your password to this game. So don't think of other email addresses. You won't get access to this. You need to use your original email address. In it, you'll find some text explaining again the setup, the strategic functions. In this case, if you go to strategic functions, you can see in it we have 4 functions. So please keep it still. No, go to strategic functions. Here it is. Yeah. Stop. Up. Strategic functions. Here. Yeah, this one. Protection and prevention, threat reduction or mitigation, response, and deterrence. These are the 4 strategic functions. And we will have sectors or functional areas, as I explained: diplomacy, military, counterintelligence, economic, law enforcement, and public-private partnerships. So it's quite a analytical framework of the 2 combined. And again, if you think about it as an Excel sheet, you'll see a lot of cells in the matrix, and that's where you're going to play the cards. And maybe drill down a bit, or scroll down a bit, Emma. So we have a scenario, and the question, of course, is in this case, the question is, how can we make Southern Africa more cyber resilient? Yeah. And please keep it still. Yeah. So how can we make it more cyber resilient? That's basically the situation to play against. And you'll be appointed, that you see on the bottom of the screen, you're being appointed as a strategic advisory committee member to government. So the way you should think about this as, okay, you have to advise your government what should be done to make your country more cyber resilient. And that's really on national level, not on local level, not on company level, but on national level. And then taking into account again the strategic functions, the four, and the various functional areas. Practical information on this game, of course, we start today. The game will be explained, or is explained already a bit on Tuesday, the 11th, during the second game session. You played cards, and then we're gonna check what you played. You don't need to play all the cards, but just be smart about it. Play the cards you think that are most useful to play. And then on the Monday, 24th of March, we'll again be there, and then we do a voting, because it means that you cannot have all the capabilities, because that's just too costly, but you have to prioritize which of the cards you think are the most important cards. And then on Tuesday, 25th, we'll do a synchronization session where we're going to ask you to play the causality matrix. And not synchronization, but this, the causality. So far about the overall time frame, I would suggest Emma going to the next step in the game. So all this information is in the game. You can read again and more detailed. Okay, so now we have the situation. So what you can do yourself is, if you think about your situation in your country, what do you think are the main hostile actors here? So just fill it in. Think about it. Whom should we defend against? And are there maybe allies or intermediaries? Because it might not be that, for example, if you think that another country is attacking your country, then you could say, okay, yeah, that's maybe the case, but do they do that themselves directly, or do they have allies or intermediates? And that is important to think about, because that means that you might need other kind of capabilities to mitigate. Another thing, of course, is then interesting is, why do they do this? So what's their motive? Also important to think about this from your perspective. So, and there's no right or wrong answers. And it is from the start of your own position, what you know about your country, and what you think is important to mention here. Interestingly enough, this kind of information can then also be seen by others at some point. So you can also learn from others what their argumentations are, actually. Okay, then strategy. You might think about, what is the desired end state? So how could we best deal with this situation? So you could say, okay, my situation is that I think we should stop this. Or you could say, okay, of course we have to stop this, but we want to be better over time than we are currently. So that could also be a desired end state. And for that, you could think about, so if so, what are my objectives then? Could I make them operational to some extent? So think about this. You can fill it in here, but if you don't, you use these questions to think about why you think certain capabilities in certain places on the analytical framework should be played. So this is more about your setting the scene for yourself. You're the context within which you're gonna play your cards, because that's, I think, the next step, Emma, the cards. And maybe you can just demo one or two, Emma, of cards to be played.
Yes, of course. So with the cards, you will be given 47 cards. Of course, you do not have to place them all. However, it is good to read through them and select the ones that you believe could be part of your strategy and your and help out in the situation that has been presented within the scenario. For example, if you click on one of the cards, let's say number 8, trace and halt cyber attacks through military operations, you can click on it, and then it will bring you to this matrix in which you want to place it between the different strategies and sectors that we saw initially, right? So for example, number 8 would be great to place probably under military and a response to a cyber attack, as you want in terms of any, excuse me, it's if
Let's
it's
go
possible.
ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So in terms of tracing back and wanting to
You missed it.
I'm sorry. Sorry, bear with me. I just can't see the screen.
Mute it again. Someone might be
The most-
muting you.
If I can ask everyone to be so kind and not mute me in order to be able to explain. So once you have placed your card, it is essential that you reason your choice. So, for example, as I already mentioned, in terms of tracing back and halting through using military strategy, would fit under the military and response sector. However, it could also, someone could argue that it could be placed under the counterintelligence. And therefore, in the reason for your choice, you would then provide a reason of why you have placed that card in the specific section within the matrix. After that, there's other information. You get to vote on whether the effect and the cost of the placement would, if it's low, medium, or high, and then make sure that you click publish right here. And one of the new features that Michel created in this game is to then you will be able to share and view what other people and where other people have decided.
Yeah, but let's go. You're a bit too quick. If so, you can play the card, and of course you can remove, as you see.
Yes. Michelle, you're muted. Sorry.
So it could be that you could play that you think you should play the card multiple,
Uh,
2 or 3 places. Yeah? So that's possible too. So okay, someone is constantly pushing the mute all button. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Anyway, so please go ahead. But this is possible. So multiple cards.
Please, again,
Okay.
if everyone could make sure not to mute all and just mute themselves, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Emma.
Yes. So following, again, you can place it in more situations, as already Michelle mentioned, for example, under counterintelligence and the military. You want to reason your choice afterwards and then publish or save as draft. Obviously, if you're working on it throughout the weekend. And Michelle, I'm sorry, before you cut out, would you want to add anything else?
No, I think this is useful, and what is important because of, and that so you need to push the button publish, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, we can't see it. But I think if you go, Emma, to the next tab on my board.
Yep, my board. It should show up. 1 second. Let me go back to. For some reason,
You're not screening at this point in time. Please.
I apologize. Here we go. Can everyone see?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for that. So once you have selected the different cards, then you want to click publish. For some reason, it currently is not seeming to save for me. However, when you will be able to publish your cards, you will then move on to my board and be able to see where those cards appear within your board. So here in the cross section between military and response and counterintelligence and response, you will be able to find the card placements.
Yeah. And what is interesting there is that these played cards will show up in the group board as well. And maybe again, Emma, you could go to the group boards. Because what is interesting in the group board, as soon as cards are being played, you see where others played cards. But also, as you click on one of those, you can also then read the arguments that others used playing the card. So I think that's an important element to also use. What else? What else is important? If you start playing cards, you probably notice that a lot of the cards you might not directly understand. So part of the serious game is to also maybe use others' arguments to really try to understand. But it is also an encouragement to maybe just go on the internet and look up for the card capability. What is it actually? So to bring you up to speed on yourself up to speed on the terminologies and the concepts that are being presented on those cards. So it's not only playing the card, but it's also learning from the cards themselves without even playing them to understand the jargon and the concept behind it. Some of it will be lectured during the course, of course, and some others will not be touched too much because there's much more than that we can lecture on. So it's a bit of self-teaching in that sense to dive deeper in on certain abilities that are being represented by the capability cards. Okay, I think for this moment this is relative important. The voting is something that we will do later on, and that at some point when you have played, then we start opening the voting, and we have to decide. So you can have a maximum 5 or 7 votes, basically meaning that we create what we would call scarcity. You can't have it all, so you have to prioritize. And then later on we play the causality as well. So I think without further ado, this point, this is how the mechanisms work a bit. I think it is, if you start playing it, self-explanatory, but there might be a couple of questions still. So I would suggest that maybe the chat or how do you want to handle it, Emma? We're gonna answer a couple of questions.
So one of the questions we have received from some of the participants is about the deadline for this game. Is the game timed, and by when should they have filled in this?
Yeah. good points. If you want, you can log in 20 times and play it every time 5 minutes. Or if you're really focused on it, you want to play it for hours, that's possible too. In the info page in the game, you see the time schedule. I alluded a little bit to it as well. So please take care that if you really want to seriously play this, take notice of these moments. But I think the first time that we reiterate here is in more or less 2 weeks time, I think. So you have plenty of time to play it. We did this the same with the Indian school that we also organize, and some people just played all the cards with a lot of arguments. Others did a bit less, but I think looking to the cards played by others, you will learn a lot about the arguments that others use to play a certain card. I think that's important. So in the info page of the game, you'll find some of these answers already asked. Any others, Elton, that we should answer?
Yeah, please. Yeah, so
Sorry.
no, I'm yeah, so one of the major things as well that has been in the chat and will be a resolution to a lot of the questions is that there is an info section on the actual game page itself. So if you've had, if there was something that you felt went a bit too fast or that you didn't quite catch, a lot of the information that we've gone over here is also available there. So do take a look there if you have any questions. We've also received some recurring questions about a recording of the session. This session, like all the other sessions, as part of this cyber school, is going to be up on the YouTube channel. I've linked it multiple times in the chat, so if you just go through there, you should be able to find it. But aside from that, I don't believe there are any additional questions for you at this time, Michel.
Okay. Great. Well, then hopefully I've been clear enough. I would suggest that the leftover time you start already logging in and maybe do the look and feel a bit and start playing. But again, you could log in 20 times, play it for 5 minutes each time, or be there for hours or days if you're really, really into it. But I can explain, I can tell you that you can learn a lot of this game, I think. So without further ado, enjoy and see you back later on this game again by the time that it's there. Okay.
Thank you, Michelle, so much for your time and for the explanation of the game session. And sorry, was there? Yep, okay. And thank you also everyone for your patience throughout it. We are working on our end to make sure that this won't happen again, and we will be able to sort everything out. However, for any further questions, do please refer back to the cyber school email. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay. Success and enjoy the game.
Sorry, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Even I.
Yes, so with this game, I understand that the information explaining how it works is provided in the opening homepage. But I just wanted to understand in terms of the deadline, because I feel like the question wasn't answered, is there a specific day that we are supposed to have already completed this game? And on top of that, is it like a scored assessment in terms of how we play the game? And do we assign more than one card?
Yes, so you can assign more than one card, and absolutely you're encouraged to do so. However, in terms of everything else, there is the game manual that is on the Sanks 25 website. And I, off the top of my head, I'm not sure the exact hours because it will be opening up for a voting section. And therefore, I do encourage you all to go to the Sanks 25 website, read it through, see the deadlines, read the information. I will find, Elton will look it up and I will post it in the chat. However, you should all have received it as well through email. And currently we are out of time, and I really do encourage you all to please start playing the games. Really make sure to spend as much time also reading through other people's responses, just to understand, and the whole game is really about interaction with each other as well. So I encourage you all to participate, and it should be a very interesting next game session. Again, I want to thank you all for your patience with us, and we are working on the technical aspect. And thank you so much.